This week, part 2 of our chat to Bath activist Zarria Phillips. What about the council generally? What do you make of them? Because it's not got a mayor like Bristol. It didn't vote for a mayor, did it?
No, it's a very interesting one actually at the moment. We have got some very good activists on the left, and I would say, you know, everybody from the Labour Party and the Greens in Bath are very good when it comes to community projects and supporting the communities. Vera Hobhouse, who's the new MP, she's been actually very supportive on the Fox Hill campaign. You know, I can't say what she does and what she doesn't do, but, you know, as far as we've seen so far, she's been very approachable, we like that. But as I said to you earlier, my MP isn't Vera Hobhouse. I live in North East Somerset. It's still in Baines, and it's Jacob Rees-Mogg.
Oh, lucky you.
Thanks
so
so
what's
much.
I mean, actually, Rees-Mogg is seen as a sort of bit of a breath of fresh air by some people in the Tory party because of the, the Theresa May and these various other people at the top. Michael Gove have been around for, it seems, forever. Ian Duncan Smith, and he's a kind of new broom, maybe. Well, although of course he's from the old guard, Etonian and all
he's
that.
No broom.
So what do you make of Rees-Mogg then?
I don't think
you're shaking your head.
I think a lot of things I'd like to say about him are not actually repeatable. I mean, unfortunately, you know, he has a lot of respect through the Conservative Party, and his manor, I would say, is where I live, and all the little villages that have been always been Tory. He picks up on people who habitually vote Tory. I don't think he's a very good MP. He seems to be very funny when he goes on Have I Got News For You, and everybody thinks he's as jolly as Boris Johnson, but actually he's very scary on his views on women and women's rights, equalities. Yeah, I wouldn't say that I'm a big fan.
Are you a Brexiteer like him?
No, I'm not a Brexiteer. But you see, but even then, you know, he says he wants to leave Europe, and what he's trying to do now.
Let's be fair, the EU, because everyone says Europe is the EU, which isn't quite.
He's just going to leave anyway. But he's now promoting getting in cheap beef from America, so you know, I don't really know. I can't really say what Jacob Rees-Mogg wants or thinks.
Anyway, we've talked a lot about what's going on right now in Bath.
Right.
Let's just talk a little bit about your past, because I know you're originally from London.
Yes.
And did you say you were a publican when we were chatting before we sat down?
Yeah, I used to work for Charrington's Brewery 4 years.
How did you get on with that?
Well, it was a very interesting time. It was after Thatcher had come in, and it was at a time where the 3 million unemployed was coming, but the same a bit like it's happening now. There was a lot of work in the hospitality sector, and it was when pubs were still community based.
So where was your pub, and what kind of pub was it?
Pubs in mostly in London, but the last pub I had, I've had pubs in various parts in London, but the last one I had was in Wapping in 1985. I moved to Wapping just as Rupert Murdoch moved in.
Oh my God! So did you see any of the? Because there was absolute running battles, weren't there? Apparently between the print workers and the police in Wapping.
It was horrendous. As a supporter of the miners the previous year, and still a supporter of the Orgreave Truth and Justice campaign, I think what had happened is that Thatcher's government, and it is evident, we've got the evidence that they learnt at Orgreave, and then they came to Wapping.
So this was let's just scroll back to there. This is the miners' strike. Mm-hmm. It was absolute warfare mostly up in Yorkshire, Nottinghamshire, places like that, Lancashire. It was also, I would imagine, probably Kent, but mostly up north. Kent, the miners were on strike, which, I mean, it just seems to me that they're maybe shooting themselves in the foot by actually helping to close down the pits if they just won't turn up to work for whatever, 6 months or a year.
No, it's not quite like that. I mean, it is all about pay, work and conditions. Essentially, people needed to have hope, need a job so you could provide and you could live, and that's what they would. Thatcher's
nowadays
they wanted to close them down for no reason.
Well, nowadays they say coal's terrible, don't they?
Yes, that argument is now 33 years later, and I understand that argument. But at the time, you're taking people's livelihoods away.
Well, people say that Thatcher was well ahead of her time. She was closing down the mines before people even knew that coal was a terrible thing.
I don't think she was doing it on the thought that it was bad for the environment. I don't ever believe her saying that.
I can remember actually going to Big Pit, which is over in South Wales, which is a sort of museum based. I think it's mostly former miners that will sort of take you around there. It's well worth a visit if people haven't been out there. But I spoke to two miners, one of whom said it was great that they closed down the pits because it was a horrible job. And the other guy said it was the biggest tragedy ever because they and their forefathers had struggled for generations to get decent conditions down the mines and safe conditions down the mines. They'd achieved it in the 60s and 70s. Yeah. And then in the 80s, the whole lot was closed down and they moved the production of coal out of the country to countries where there were no regulations or there were no unions. So what was your view on the rights and wrongs of the strike?
Well, I think again, you go back to where people's livelihoods are. When you grow up and you know what you know and you do the job you're good at, you're a skilled, however it works, you're skilled at doing the job you're doing. You take that out of the equation. What are they going to do? This is an argument a friend's father said to me, well, they could have gone and get another job. I said, yeah, okay. 11,000 miners from Orgreave, because they've all got a job in Woolworths in Sheffield. They were skilled workers. Somebody who worked in Woolworths couldn't have gone and dug a mine, but they certainly were thinking that's what they should be doing the other way around. And then, of course, it's left whole swathes of communities that haven't had any investment since. There are no jobs. The issues around mental health, drugs, alcohol, the depression of communities.
Yeah, if you go up to some of these places like Doncaster, etc., and Sheffield up north, you'll find there's a great big city there that doesn't really seem to have any purpose anymore.
No.
Which is tragic, really. You've got
you take away
very little industry left.
Well, you take away an industry, but it's not just the industry. It's the pubs, the clubs, the transport, the cleaners. The biggest knock-on effect is just the whole community finding itself not able to survive.
So you have running battles with the miners trying to picket the pits and various characters trying to ship the coal out or move the coal into the power stations, this sort of thing. Running battles with the police between the miners, massive pickets of miners and the police. And then after that, sort of paramilitary style of policing, they then came down to around your neck of the woods in Wapping. What did you see down in Wapping then?
Well, I did. Well, I wasn't directly on the picket line, but I used to see people. I knew what had happened, and you live the experience by talking to people, and the fact that we've got a lot of evidence to show exactly what was going on. Like with Orgreave, it was the bullying tactics of the government and the media that was again it was making it out what it wasn't, the Murdoch media and the way that it had to go at the Orgreave and what was happening there, and the way that they made it into something else it wasn't. They used different footage, they turned a lot of the public against them. And the same thing happened at Wapping. On the strength of Orgreave, they came up to Wapping just thinking, right, well, we can beat the print unions, because the things that Thatcher didn't like were the unions, and that's where they were going. It wasn't even about the people. It was about we're not going to let you. We're not going to let you do what give yourselves a good job, a pay, conditions, a community. What they did is they broke the communities. Orgreave, Wapping. Then we went to Battle of the Beanfield. They took the community out of that group, and that's what they were doing very successfully.
So, what made you leave Wapping, or what's because that was a pub?
Yeah, I had my son. Yeah,
and then you came up this part of the world did you?
Yeah, I did. 20 years ago, I moved to Bath, which was a good thing for me. and my son, and I had friends and family here, so.
Because people think of Bath, I think, I mean, I certainly do, as a little bit austere, maybe austerity, I don't want to get that too confused, but it's slightly upmarket, should we say, a bit posh, not very much in the way of lefty activism going on in Bath. Now, you've talked about Unite Communities, and you've talked about Bath Against the Cuts. Anything else really going on the ground in Bath?
Well, Bath 20 years ago is very different to what it is now, and I had a council house, the communities that we worked in, I worked in education, and the sort of things that we were very active in are still, the issues that we're still fighting in Bath. Is it could be anything from the pollution of the London Road, or whether there should be another road, or whatever it is. And now, of course, later on, the knocking down of the estates. But unfortunately, going back to Thatcher, they sold off all the council houses. So, again, communities that are in Bath, they are still there. And, we see them, we talk to them. And again, with Unite Community, we go out, we talk to people. And alongside the Bath Against Cuts, we go out and train people up if they've been out of work for a while, or want to revisit being part of a union. So again, Bath there's a lot going on.
What's the main industry? Is there any industry left much in Bath now?
Bath, hospitality, and it's
tourism
and hospitality, and the jobs in hospitality. And now we're finding that business owners are shipping their staff in because they can't afford to live in Bath. It's an issue.
What, shipping them from where?
From Trowbridge.
Oh, right. So are they commuting up to Bath?
Yeah, people are having to commute to go to work. But quite often there was an issue a couple of months back that we have found out about, is that one of the business owners was, putting on a minibus to bring his staff in.
But the city centre seems to have had a bit of a revamp, doesn't it, recently?
Yes,
looking
for the
better?
Tourists. No, for the tourists. And there's a lovely casino that's not going to be used by the locals. A couple of new hotels that won't be used by locals. Part of the college, where I used to work, it sold off one of its buildings. They've sold off a lot of the staff that work there as well, but they've sold off one of the buildings, which is going to be turned into a hotel. So yeah, we've got the hospitality going on in Bath, but it's bleeding Bath dry.
Also, it'd be nice to finish with some contacts for Unite Community and Bath Against the Cuts. So if people want to follow what you're up to, how do they do that, Zarria?
Right, well, if you're on Facebook, then of course you can find Bath Against Cuts. With Unite Community, if you look up the Bristol area Unite Community branch, that sort of Facebook page, contact any. If you put that into a website, even if you haven't got Facebook and you're not confident in using it, just put those into the search engine, and you'll find contact details, mostly for me. If you live in Bristol, pop into the Unite building, which is Tony Benn House on Victoria Street. We meet there once a month on a Thursday, first Thursday of the month. You can pop in, or you can just pop in there and they'll give you our details.
Is that the early evening or something?
No, that's 11 o'clock. 11 o'clock on a Thursday.
Okay.
Not in December, but normally we meet, yeah. So
and with the Bath Against the Cuts, don't you find that all these lefties are always having a go at each other, like the People's Front of Judea and the Judea People's Front?
No, we don't. The anti-cuts are not like that at all. We are not. We're certainly not politically aligned to anybody. And we welcome everybody and everybody's views and thoughts. But what we like to make sure is that we're all heard, and not one group dominates another. So, and we're very good at that. Same with Unite Community. I've got every political party in my branch,
including the Conservatives.
No, sorry, I forgot them. They don't seem to want to come out and play.
Jacob not come along to those meetings?
Yeah, he hasn't quite signed up to it yet, but no, I don't. But we cover everybody. We don't leave anybody behind.
Zarria Phillips, thanks very much for joining us on Dialect.
Thank you, Tony.
You're listening to dialectradio.co.uk. your local community radio run by volunteers. Log on to our website at dialectradio.co.uk to find out more.